everyone. This is Marcia, and I want to talk with you about the zigzag portion of the basket. A couple of things I learned in doing this. First of all, full disclosure, I could see that the pattern wasn't working, even though I thought I was following the instructions correctly. So I had to unweave, which is basket makers talk for taking it apart again. So I like to share that sometimes because I don't want you to think I'm infallible. I make mistakes. I have to sometimes reweave things. Sometimes I'll get off the pattern when I'm weaving even a simple thing if I'm not paying close attention. So anyway, I want to talk with you a little bit about how to do this zigzag weave. And you can see that I have done most of it here. It's really a cool weave. But it took me a little bit to get it. So the way to start, you're going to start with the natural seagrass, and it actually goes under the twining. You just pry up the twining a little bit and stick it under the fourth, the fourth blue spoke is where you insert it, and then it just follows the normal basketry pattern of over, behind this one, so it would go over this one, and then go from there. I'm sorry, I can't quite see that. But when you get to the other side, what you do is you actually loop it around, and then you go behind two and come back the same way that you did the same weave that you did in the first row. That's quite different. Most of the time in basketry, we do the opposite, so that if it was over this spoke, say, it would be under on the next row. But you can see here that I have two rows that are over. And that's where I got messed up. That was part of it. You have to come back over here, and then you're looping it around one to the right. So it's here. So it's one to the right of the starting spoke. And then you do your opposite row. She calls it a locking row. And that becomes the first row of the next pair. So it sounds a little confusing, but you do your lock row all the way back. You haven't done the second row yet. And then you pick up the blue. So a couple of other things that I think might help you. First of all, I had to keep most of this moist. I had to keep spraying it so that the seagrass, which tends to be a little stiff, was able to be flexed. And also I wanted my spokes to be able to bend a little bit as I was weaving, not be so rigid. So I did spray frequently. The other thing I did was use toothpicks, as I showed you before, to try to keep the spacing between the spokes. And I found a little bowl that was pretty close to the diameter that I wanted at the widest point. So I actually set this inside the basket and wove around it. I think if you don't have a bowl that's the appropriate size, then you might, and check the diameter of the basket and you'll see what the appropriate size is from the instructions. But the other thing you might do is just put a weight in the bottom of the basket just to kind of hold it steady, because it's small and it tends to move around quite a bit. But I do want to show you this weave, since I have one more row here to do with the natural. And you'll see that it asks you in your locking row to this is the row that's opposite of the two before it. So this is what's considered the locking row. And what I would do here is I would go one more to the right. You can see it comes out, this is where I ended, but it needs to go over one more. And in order to make the weave work, the weave that this basket uses, I need to go behind two. So I'm behind this one and this one. And now I'm going to follow the previous row. And I don't know if you can see this, but now I'm getting two pieces of seagrass on each of these spokes where it goes over. Doing this upside down, so apologies for maybe not being quite so smooth. And now, if you notice, I am back to, this was the last one I looped around. In order to make the basket locking row work, we're going to go actually behind this one, and then come back, and it will be opposite the row before it. So this is my locking row. See how now I've got 2 over the spoke. My locking row goes the opposite of the previous row. And I'm going to push it all down. Trying to get it so you can see it here. But again, my locking row is opposite now the row that came before it. And here I am back to where I started. Okay, a couple of other things. So then if I were going to go another row, as you know, I would need to go 1 more over. I would need to go over 2 and then start back and follow it the same way as before, so I'd have 2 going the same direction. You want to try to make your spokes, again, even so that the basket shape is consistent. Some people, if they're trying to widen it, would pull out. Again, I cheated a little bit. I used the bowl as kind of a mold. But that is the Zig Zag Weave. Check your pattern from how many rows you do, and the way you count the rows in the Zig Zag Weave is to start from where you started and count diagonally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And it'll tell you in your pattern how many rows you need. Okay, that's the zigzag part, and next I'll be showing you how to do the top triple twining.